Coming to you from the Deep South, this is the Blue Collar Leadership Podcast. High-impact leadership is not reserved for leaders, and it has nothing to do with your position, title, or rank. However, it does have everything to do with your character. It's time to climb to the next level and beyond, personally and professionally. Now, let's start making it happen with your host, Mack Story.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for listening to the Blue Collar Leadership Podcast today. So after 8 long years of publishing now to 502 episodes of the Blue Collar Leadership Podcast, every single week, sometimes more, especially in the beginning, it was every single day. But for quite a few years now, it's been on a weekly schedule that I've been releasing these podcasts. But starting this month, I'll be moving and shifting to a monthly schedule. So new episodes will be releasing on the first day of each month. But don't worry, show's not going anywhere. I'm just shifting gears, slowing down a little bit so I can focus on some other things. But also, I've got 500 plus episodes already. So there's a ton of content out there for you. And I hope you've been learning a lot. If you're a new listener, go back to the beginning and start from there, or look up some of the episodes on my Blue Collar Leadership YouTube channel. There's a lot of playlists there where I have many of the series listed. Anyway, hope you keep listening. Hope you've been enjoying the podcast. Share it with other folks. Let's get to today's episode. So today we made it up to episode 502. The title of today's episode is Why Smart, Talented People Stay Stuck. So I want to give you a little bit of overview of what we got coming today. So if you've ever felt overlooked, passed up, or stuck, despite your talent, this episode will challenge you to look in the mirror, take responsibility, and finally break through the wall that's holding you back. In this episode, I'm going to unpack some truth from John Maxwell. I'm going to open up with a quote, and that where he's talking about your character growth determines the height of your personal growth. So we'll revisit that in a minute. But that's where we open today. And then I'm going to share some real world career stories. I'm going to talk about Norman Schwarzkopf. He was the leader of the military campaign in Desert Storm. He made it happen back in those days. But he said 99% of leadership failures are failures in character. Pretty powerful, and I agree. So I'm going to reveal why so many sharp, capable professionals remain trapped at the bottom of the corporate ladder. It's not because they lack skills or intelligence, because remember I said they're sharp and capable. And when I say professional, I don't just mean the people at the top. I mean somebody who's got a job and working. That's what I'm talking about. You got your personal side of your life and your professional side of your life. That's what I'm talking about. Professional doesn't mean you got to wear a suit and tie to work. It means that's your business side of life. But it's not their lack of skills or intelligence that's holding these folks back. It's their character is what's holding them back. So I'm going to introduce you to some what I call confused people. You're probably like this, the little talk, who blame the world, their bosses, and their coworkers, while constantly and most often unknowingly sabotaging their potential. Discover the difference between getting hired for competency and getting promoted or fired for character. And you're going to learn why more degrees and technical training will never fix what only character building can. So that's what we're going to talk about today. I put that little opening to give you a heads up of what's coming. So maybe that'll get your interest, and you'll stay with me till the end. And even if it doesn't apply to you, you're going to see people in your life who you know it applies to. And you're probably going to remember people in your career, maybe somebody you're working with now, that you know it applies to. So get the lesson. Maybe you can share it with them at some point in life, or at least you better understand what you're seeing with your own eyes. All right, so let's let's dive in. And as I often do lately, and I'm going to do it for a while, I do all types of different content on my podcast. So uh, I'm going through a lot of the content, using it to create some episodes. And it's content from my book, Defining Influence, subtitle, Increasing Your Influence Increases Your Options. So this is some more content from chapter 8, not literally reading the chapter to you and calling that a podcast. I am reading some from the book and then adding my additional thoughts. So what might take me 5 or 6 minutes to read from the book, I turn it into a 30-minute podcast or 20-minute podcast by adding a lot of extra to it. So I read a little, I add a lot in between the lines. Most of the time you probably can't tell the difference, but you're not getting everything that's in the book. And I'm giving you a lot of stuff that's not in the book. So if you want to dive into that book, if you like some of this content, go get it, because it may take me a year or two to get through this whole book, and I'm not making it a series. Although when I'm done, I most likely will go back through all the chapters that relate to the book and try to dig them out and make a playlist on my YouTube channel as an audio playlist so people can go find it. My other books that I have series on are already there, if you didn't know that. So you can go to the Blue Collar Leadership YouTube channel, look at the playlist, and you can find a lot of the audio series from this podcast that are there. All right, let's dive into that quote I was telling you about earlier from John Maxwell. He says, your character growth determines the height of your personal growth. Without personal growth, you can never reach your potential. That quote alone explains to you what I often say, that personal growth is the foundation of leadership development, and that character development equals leadership development. It's the same exact thing, just a different way of saying it, but it's the same principle. So when you think about John's words, I think about the many people I've met in my career that's stuck on the bottom of the corporate ladder with tremendous potential. I mean, I've seen these folks. They are very sharp. I've worked beside them, very sharp. And I think back to my younger days in my early 20s in my career. I mean, a lot of those people were a lot older than me, and they were still doing the same job as me. And there's nothing wrong with that. Let me just say that up front. There's nothing wrong with that if that's what you want to be doing, or if that's what they wanted to be doing. But again, I worked beside them all day or all night. Most back then it was all night. We was on the night shift. I went to lunch with them. I talked to them during work. We were close enough working together I could talk to them. They were not happy doing what they were doing. They were moaning, groaning, and whining about being stuck. So that's kind of what I'm going to talk to you about. What causes these people that have so much potential? They do a good job. They got the skills. What causes these people just to be stuck? And I'm calling it the corporate ladder, right? They're at the bottom of the org chart. They actually want to climb. Doesn't necessarily mean they want to be the boss. Maybe they do, maybe they don't, but they want to climb up to a higher level than where they're at. So these people have more competency than character. That's the problem right there. Again, don't forget this piece I'm telling you. If somebody is in a low-level position and that's where they want to be and they're happy, that is perfectly fine. I'm not talking about those people. I'm talking about those people that are in a position, especially if it's the entry-level position, and they don't want to be there, and they've been there for years. They've proven themselves far more than once, but they're still stuck. These people have more competency than character. That's what you need to know. Just remember the group I'm talking about. Keep it in the right context. They have tons of potential held back by a dam constructed of poor character. That right there is exactly what's happening. They're very sharp. They're very capable, and could potentially be in a higher position with better pay, more responsibility, and more influence. But guess what? Many believe the world is out to get them. See, that's a character flaw right there. They feel they cannot catch a break. That's a character flaw right there. They're the victim. That's what they're feeling like. They're the victim. You already noticed that. The world's out to get them. They can't catch a break. The real problem is they're not willing to accept responsibility for themselves, for developing themselves. How about that? They're not the victim. They actually they are the victim in one way. They're the victim of their thinking. That's what they're the victim of. They're not a victim of the world or the boss or whatever's going on in the world they live in. They're a victim of the way they're thinking. That's what we all are, regardless of where we're at in life. What's stopping us from being at the next level, whatever that may be, is our thinking. So in that case, we're all a victim of our thinking. The whole life we've lived is because of our thinking. That's why if you want to transform yourself, all you got to ever do, hit that reset button. You can do it at any time. Develop a new way of thinking. That's what I try to help people do through my podcast. So this going way back, I don't remember when this movie came out, but if you've seen the movie The Sixth Sense with Bruce Willis, you'll remember that there's a kid in there saying he sees dead people. It's a really good movie. I've watched it several times over the years. It's pretty old, but it's still good. And it'll throw you for a loop if you don't know what's coming when you watch that movie. It's got a pretty good hidden detail in there. Pretty obvious to kind of catch it once you've watched it. But anyway, if you haven't seen it, you might like to give it a shot. Go look up on YouTube, look up the trailer for The Sixth Sense, and might get you interested, and you go ahead and watch it. But Bruce Willis was in there, and again, you remember there's a kid saying he sees dead people. Throughout the movie, this kid just sees dead people. Other people don't see them, but this kid sees them. And you see, sometimes when I'm speaking on stage, I talk about this, and I'm kind of like the kid. The kid sees dead people, but I don't see dead people when I'm walking through life. I often see confused people. Remember I told you earlier I was going to introduce you to this concept, this term about confused people. Here we go. So I often see confused people in life, everywhere. They think it's the world's fault that they are where they are. But in reality, it's no one's fault but their own. That's why they're confused. They need to stop being confused. They're responsible for the choices they make, which either develops or destroys their character. And ultimately, their character is holding them back. My character is holding me back. Your character is holding you back. Everyone else you meet, they got the same problem me and you have. Their character is holding them back. We can destroy our character quickly. But guess what? We can't build it quickly. Character building takes time and discipline. And most people won't take the time and won't develop the discipline. But let me tell you about these confused people some more. You'll know when you encounter a confused person. They may be telling you how the man, the boss, that's the blue collar term that comes from the world I come from. We always talk about the man. The man's out to get us. Sometimes people call the man the government, if you've ever heard people using this term. But they may be telling you how the man is out to get them, or how their coworkers are against them, or how they work much harder than others but continuously get passed up for promotions or pay increases. Or they know how to do all the jobs but get overlooked for promotions. In other words, they focus on blame. They're not necessarily bad people with bad intentions. They are simply confused about who is responsible for their lives. Think about that. Whenever you're hearing somebody blame anybody, anything outside of themselves for what's going on in their lives, they're confused. You hear somebody playing the victim card, painting themselves as the victim, which a lot of people do. And there's a lot of people out there that's trying to influence people to do exactly that. Those are bad people. Bad people out there trying to influence people to think they're a victim. There's a lot of that going on in the world. You've probably seen it. But the people who actually think they are the victim, they're confused about who's responsible for their lives. And a lot of them are confused because they listen to people who they ought not be listening to, who don't have their best interest in mind. But they have character work to do because they're unable to meet the demands of reality. We all have more work to do because we all want more out of life. We all want more out of life in some area of our life. We may not want more money. Some people don't want more money. We may not want a bigger house. Some people don't care. They content with where they're at. But there's something. Sometimes people want more family time. Sometimes people want more personal time. There's all kind of things you can want in life. Whatever that is, that's the demand of reality. Your reality is you want more of something. And we all have more work to do because we all want more out of life. Maybe more freedom to do what you want to do instead of what somebody else wants you to do. It's all about context. So as you listen to all the things I'm always sharing on here, you got to put them in the context of your life. You got to dig out these principles I'm sharing with you. Figure out, how do I apply this in my life? Because I'm not the victim. I'm responsible. And I got a character flaw, and I need to work on it. That's called looking in the mirror and taking responsibility. That's what I've been doing since 2008, when I discovered this content at a whole different level. And it's slow. It's a grind. I'm still working on it. You still working on it. That's good. I'm proud of you. Keep working on it. See if you can motivate and influence someone else to work on it. But these people who want more out of life, they usually perform their, and I'm talking about now that, the folks at the bottom of the ladder at work. They usually perform their task very well, but remain at the bottom of the ladder. Those people I was telling you about when I was young, I worked beside them. I didn't stay at the bottom of the ladder, but they did. I remember when I started climbing, I climbed to the next level, climbed to another level, climbed to another level. And I still saw these people. Sometimes I still talk to them. They still moaning and groaning. They still ain't figured it out. They think that the world's against them. The only person against them is that person they was looking at in the mirror. That person in the mirror needs to be for them, but they were not. Instead of being for them, they were giving themselves some self-talk that they're the victim, watching everybody else climb the ladder but them. Maybe need to do a little reflecting, right? But when you meet someone and they're at the bottom of the ladder with years of experience, and again, the key point, and they don't want to be there. Remember, I'm not talking about the people who are happy where they're at. I'm talking about the ones who do not want to be there. There is a reason they are there. The reason is their character flaws are holding them back. That's what's holding them back. If it happens to be you, that's what's holding you back. And I'm glad you listened to this podcast. And I hope you go listen to the other 500 before this one and let it soak in. Marinate on it. Figure out what to do to make your life better, because you are in control of your life. You are responsible. If you think you're not, that very thought is the problem. You got to get rid of that thought. Get to work on that. But the scenario I'm talking about doesn't apply to a young person, somebody who's 18, starting out their career, or maybe someone who's changed careers. Maybe they've been in some other career for many years, but they're in a new career, so now they're back at the bottom again. So what I'm talking about doesn't apply to them. They're supposed to be at the bottom. Somebody young starting out, supposed to be at the bottom. Somebody changing careers that don't have the competency, don't have the experience, they're supposed to be at the bottom. What I'm talking about is related to someone who's very sharp relative to their job, their work, their knowledge, their competency, relative to what they do for a living. But they're seemingly out of place. Doesn't make sense. I meet these people. I speak all over the country. I speak to a lot of entry-level people. And I meet some of them that are older and extremely sharp, and they've been there a long time. And a lot of times the reason I meet them, they're talking to me because they're frustrated. They're being overlooked. And they think it's somebody else's fault. Let's say it is somebody else's fault. It's the boss. The boss don't like me, so they overlook me. And you may be thinking, well, how can that be my fault? It's my fault because I'm working there. That's how. Why am I still working there if my boss is overlooking me? That's why I got a character flaw. I don't have the courage to do whatever I need to do to not be working there, to give myself a better chance somewhere else. See how easy it is? So many people, they want to blame so much that they can't get away from blaming. They can't understand it's my fault. I got a bad boss. It's my fault. Quit moaning, groaning, whining about the bad boss. Do something about it. That's life. There's a good chance the next place you're going to go to, even if you leave, you may have another bad boss. Guess what you got to do again? You got to leave again. A lot of bad people out there, and I mean poor character relative to leading someone else. That's when you really start becoming a bad person, is when your bad character is negatively influencing someone else. Just having poor character doesn't necessarily mean you're a bad person. Means you need to work on yourself. But if your poor character is doing harm to other people, then yeah, you're a bad person in my book, because that ain't what we're supposed to be doing for others. We're supposed to be helping them. And you can go listen to some podcasts. I don't know what they are, but I know there's probably hundreds or even thousands of them out there where you can get on there and listen to people moan, groan, and whine and try to help you be the victim. That ain't who I am. I think those are bad people. But what I'm talking about again, someone's sharp. They seem out of place when you meet them because they seem like they should be in a higher position, but they're not. Someone you meet, they're appearing to have much to offer. They do, but they've not overcome their character flaws to release their true potential. And ultimately, that's all of us. But I'm talking about the ones in the workplace who are at the bottom, whatever that is, frontline, entry-level position in the field they're working in. They could be an engineer, which compared to an entry-level frontline worker, that would seem like a high-level position. But if you went to school to be an engineer and you're in the engineering department and you're at the bottom, you're on the front lines. That's why I say you got to put all this stuff in context. Everything's always relative. But we get hired for what we know, and we get fired for who we are. And I bet you've seen this play out in your career. I'm sure you already know that not everyone who should be fired gets fired. Unfortunately, some hang on because they work hard and can produce. I was that guy when I was young in my career. I should have been fired because of my character, but I wasn't, because I was a hard worker and I produced results, highly productive. So they kept overlooking it. But I didn't get promoted until I figured out start working on my character. Then I started getting promoted. I was just skyrocketing up the ladder. Once I figured out I need to work on my character. For quite a few years in the beginning, I was just a hard worker and I had terrible character, but they wouldn't fire me. But those people like me, like I'm describing now, their competency allows them to hang on the ladder. But the character keeps them from climbing it. That was me. So undoubtedly, they get hired for what they know, but many of them do not make it past the level for which they are hired. They remain stuck. I call it ladder lock. You're stuck on the ladder. You can't climb. And they're not climbing because of who they are. It doesn't matter where they are on the ladder relative to what I'm talking about in this moment. They're just stuck. If their competency is higher than their position, meaning they could actually do some of the positions above them, then it's the character that's holding them back. If you see people out in the world and you know you're smarter than them, you know you're more capable than them, maybe they're running their own business and you think, man, I could do a better job than them. How come you ain't doing it? It's your character. Something about your character. Maybe it's just a lack of courage to step out, take a chance and bet on yourself. Because I'm telling you, when you see somebody out there in business doing something, especially if you're better than them, I can tell you that's one thing that they've done that you haven't done. They bet on themselves. They had the courage to do it. And a lot of other character traits. But many take the easy way out and continue to develop their competency in an attempt to fix everything when they find themselves in that spot. They may go back to college. They may take another course of some type. They get another degree. They may go get a certification. These things are great, but make a minimal impact without the support of good and solid character. What good would 3 degrees do any of us if we can't get along with people? It won't do much good. We may not be able to get a job or keep a job, no matter how many degrees we got. To be effective in this world, we must be able to work with others. And check this out. To be highly effective, we must be able to work through others. That means influence others to accomplish the mission. That means be an effective, high-impact leader of other people. Whether you're in a formal position or not, it ain't got nothing to do with it. It's about influence based on your character and your competency. If we do become more educated, we may be smarter and know more than others. But if we can't get along with people, nothing much will change. If we don't work on our character, we will not be much better off in our professional career, meaning your job. No matter how much we educate ourselves, we got to work on character. That's why I'm glad you're listening to this. Sometimes character and competency level off at the same time. This is called the Peter principle. You might have heard me talk about that before. There's a book about that. I read it not too long ago. I knew about this for years, but I never knew there was a book about it. But I'm talking about when your character and competency level off at the same time, it's called the Peter principle, which states people get promoted to their level of incompetency. And there they remain. But it's not only about competency, but also character, because your character is going to determine your competency. Your character determines what you're willing to learn, how much you're willing to sacrifice to learn whatever you must learn. Sometimes you got to pay. You got to sacrifice time, money, other opportunities to get your competency. And some people don't have the character to do that. Everything is a character issue, ultimately. When this happens, people don't want to take a hard look in the mirror and do the character work necessary to continue to develop the needed competency so they can excel. And what I'm talking about, that Peter principle. Their competency may have gotten them the position, but it may not be enough to meet the requirements of the position. Sometimes people get promoted. What it took to get the position ain't what it's going to take to excel in the position. They must grow by learning more and doing more to excel, but they don't. And when they don't, it's called the Peter principle. You've seen this. You've heard people say it. You might have said it. I've said it. You'll say, how in the world did these people ever get promoted into this job? Because somebody saw potential in them. They thought they can do this job, so they promoted them. But then people didn't live up to that potential because of their character. So then they flop around all over the place. And they usually either sit there and cause a lot of people problems, or either they get terminated, cause themselves a big problem. But their character flaws are preventing them from applying themselves. They need to develop additional competency in order to be effective. Instead of choosing to grow, they choose to coast. And in my world, you either growing or slowing. Coasting is slowing. In other words, this isn't good for them or those around them. So I shared with you a little earlier about Norman Schwarzkopf. He said 99% of leadership failures are failures in character. And remember, everybody's a leader because leadership is influence. So when I say 99% of leadership failures are failures in character, reading that quote from Norman Schwarzkopf, leadership failures are failures of anybody. That's a leadership failure. People with a high degree of character develop the necessary competency needed to get where they want to go. They have the ability to meet the demands of reality, in other words. With strong character, they find a way to make it happen. Unfortunately, though, many people with a high degree of competency never develop the character required to get them to where they want to go. They have a blind spot and cannot see their problem in the mirror. One reason is that many of these people already think they're smarter than almost everyone else. You've met some of these people, these cocky people, these arrogant people. Let's assume they're correct. they are smarter than most of those around them doing similar jobs or jobs they want to be doing. This means they place a high value on intellectual knowledge, which is great. Being smarter than others is not a problem. Thinking and acting like we are smarter than others is a problem. Because it's pride, it's ego, it's arrogance, cockiness. It's a character flaw and may lead to isolation and limitation, where our influence is decreased. Knowledge alone is not enough. It's not the smartest who will win the battle, although there may be a place for them on the field. No one should be on the field unless they add to the effectiveness of the team by connecting and cooperating in a synergistic manner. Synergy means the whole's greater than the sum of the parts. It means we work together to accomplish something none of us could accomplish working separately. That's what synergy is. It's habit 6 from the 7 habits of highly effective people. But we need to reflect back to Henry Cloud's definition of character that I shared with you in the previous episode when I was talking about content from Defining Influence, where he says the ability to meet the demands of reality. That's his definition of character, the ability to meet the demands of reality. In this case that I just described, teamwork is a demand of reality. Some people have not developed the ability to work well with a team. That's a character flaw. Remember, character is the ability to meet the demands of reality. If I'm on a team and I don't work well with the team, I got character flaws. Guess what? So does everybody else on the team. But if they're working well as a team, they got the right character to work well as a team. They got flaws in some other areas, because we all do. But some people have not developed the ability to work well with a team. They could, but they haven't. Until they do, they will remain stuck. Hope you enjoyed today's episode. Talk to you next time.
Make it happen or someone else will. It might as well be you. Are you serious about taking your career and your life to the next level and beyond? Check out Mack Story's Blue Collar Leadership Series books and others, now available on audio, along with paperback and ebooks at Amazon and Audible. Please visit bluecollarleadership.com to learn about Mack's books, programs, special offers, and more. Thank you for listening to the Blue Collar Leadership Podcast.